Oh, the things today's modern women come up with to justify breaking their marriage vows, breaking their commitment, breaking their word, and in the process try and get as many other women as they can to join them in doing so.
So Trump is considering ending no-fault divorce in the United States, which means that in order for a man or a woman to get a divorce, a judge has to approve it. Ladies, do it now.
Oh boy, let's clarify a few things on what she said, shall we? First off, and I have to say it's mind-boggling to me that she doesn't know this already, but I hate to break it to her, judges already have to sign off on divorces, even no-fault ones. You can't just wave your magic wand and sprinkle that lavender-scented fairy dust you've been snorting and say, I'm divorced. So that part of her argument is absolutely moot. But it's actually a tell of what feminists do and have done for years, which is to manipulate and misrepresent things in order to try and poison women, especially as in this case, into poison them into hating their husbands and men in general. And to take it a step further, to get them to file for divorce as soon as possible because, well, if they don't, they might not be able to in the future. The sad part is all the women in the comments on her video believing what she said and saying, oh boy, I'm going to go ahead and leave my husband now. And it begs the question, why? Why do women do this? Why do feminists do this? And why have they been doing it for decades now? The answer, as I've said many times before, it's a case of misery loves company. The women who make these videos are alone, can't find a man, and thus they want to convince as many other women as they can to join them and, in the end up as miserable as they are. But let's set that aside and deal with some facts. Facts which apparently she and most women aren't aware of. Let's really delve into her claim that the Trump administration is looking to end no-fault divorce, which in reality is nothing more than a pipe dream, a fantasy concocted to stir women's emotions up, to hit them in the feels, to get them to divorce their husbands. I've looked, I've researched. There is literally no public record, not one, that I can find anywhere of Trump saying any such thing. But you see, to feminists and these kind of women, Trump is Satan incarnate. And what better way to convince other women to leave their husbands than to bring his name into it? And again, it's been feminism's modus operandi for decades now. Feelings over facts. So bringing Trump into it is just another way to get the emotions of women riled up. Now, I'll be fair here. His VP, J.D. Vance, has in the past, as in about 3.5 years ago, said that he had some concerns about the prevalence of divorce in modern society, saying that the way things are, people can, and I quote, shift spouses like they change underwear, which is entirely true. It's exactly the case now. And with 80% of the divorces being filed by women, mostly because they've been convinced by other women that they can do better, well, let's just say there's a lot of underwear being changed. But once again, I cannot find anywhere where he explicitly proposed ending no-fault divorce. In fact, the only thing I found, and she actually referenced it in the comments on her videos, was an article stating that unnamed conservative Republicans wanted to look into it. I mean, we trust the media, right? They'd never manipulate something or outright lie to get clicks, likes, and eyeballs on their product, would they? The product they need to sell to get people to look at it in order to sell advertising and bring in revenue. I mean, come on, man. We can't go around having truth and facts be our basis for something because that won't bring the money in. And as I said, this has been the MO of feminism for quite a while now, where they interpret things in a way that they know will get women upset, a way that fits their feels in order to get them to be angry and sow discord and rancor towards men, and in the process, convince them to buy into the feminist agenda. It's why they take little nuggets and twist and manipulate them, knowing full well women will fully accept what they say as gospel and never do a lick of research to find out if it's actually true, which is the exact point of this video. It's exactly why they're now going around saying the Trump administration is going to end no-fault divorce. And I actually find it sad how easily women are being manipulated like that, and how uneducated they are on simple realities. I mean, anyone who's actually ever done any research knows that divorce laws are determined primarily by individual states, not the federal government. And, oh, by the way, laws simply cannot just be implemented. There's a whole process behind them. But apparently, these women didn't pay attention to Schoolhouse Rock back in the day. Thus, even if Trump wanted to end no-fault divorce, and again, I remind you, he's never said that, he does not have the direct authority to do so. Now, could they, in theory, try and influence states to pass laws to ban no-fault divorce? Sure. I mean, that's exactly what they did with the Child Support Acts in 1974 and 1996, where they actually incentivized women to divorce their husbands by offering states huge amounts of money, billions per year, in fact, all funded by your tax dollars, by the way, to encourage states to pass no-fault divorce and child support laws, which, while they claim is directed at making the non-custodial parent responsible, in reality were passed and are being enforced to ensure that men, as they've all publicly stated, do have to take responsibility. It was one big bundle to implement no-fault divorce and child support, and there's a reason why. It led to a little thing called Title 4D, and oh, by the way, it was the Republicans and red states who led the way in implementing it. And if you think at the federal level that they're going to do anything to take away that cash cow, well, crazy doesn't even begin to cover it. Because in the end, it's turned out to be the best wealth transfer scheme ever invented. Lawyers have been and are making bank off the backs of the destruction of the family unit. And feminism is playing its role, doing exactly what they wanted, which is why they work so hard to convince women to hate their husbands. It's why feminism has supported laws like no-fault divorce to make it easier for them to get a divorce. It's why they want it to be nothing more than a woman saying, I don't want to be married anymore, and then a few months later, that contract, that vow she made, is wiped off the face of the earth. And it's also why they've incentivized women further by all but guaranteeing them they're going to get custody of the children and the corresponding riches of child support that accompany it. Which in turn leads to, guess what? Court battles. Which, who does that help? Well, the lawyers and judges. It's making them rich. And oh yeah, the states as well. All at the expense of the families and, yes, the women that it's supposedly trying to help. I mean, why have money to send Johnny or Jane to college when you can spend it on legal fees? And sadly, people have fallen for it hook, line, and sinker. That said, let's have a little fun, shall we? Let's say they actually did want to rescind no-fault divorce at the federal level. What would have to happen? Well, first, a bill would have to be introduced into Congress and then make its way through committees, and if it survived all that, eventually get to the floor for a vote. And oh, by the way, this would have to happen in both the Senate and the House. And the odds of that happening, especially after the bar associations and women's groups start pouring millions of dollars into politicians' pockets, start lobbying, are about the same as I have of winning the Daytona 500 and throwing the winning touchdown in the Super Bowl in the next couple of weeks. But let's say for the sake of argument, they actually succeeded and got a bill passed to do away with no-fault divorce, which again, I need to state, there's no such bill in place right now. Then and only then would it go to the president's desk. And then and only then would Trump have the option to sign it into law. And yes, I know I keep repeating myself here, and I'm doing so for the sake of emphasis. I need to remind you, he's never said he would. But let's say he did. Even then, it likely wouldn't be implemented right away because it would immediately face legal challenges from the states. The AGs from states who would be panicking at the loss of billions of dollars in revenue from the federal government every year. They would get together and immediately request an injunction, much like you're seeing them do with many of Trump's current executive orders. And that requested stay would be most certainly granted immediately, ordered by some judge, A judge whose retirement, by the way, is partially funded by the very Title 4D money that would go away. But hey, that's for another video. And once the AGs filed it, a little thing that women in the left hate so much called the Constitution would then come into play. In the end, it would go into the federal courts and have to make its way up the ladder, most likely all the way to the Supreme Court, which could take years. And even if SCOTUS upheld the law, which again has about as much chance as a vegan winning the Nathan's hot dog eating contest, it would force states to rewrite their existing divorce laws in order to comply. And that also is not just going to happen overnight. In the end, this is much ado about nothing. But as you notice with videos like this, they are, shall we say, a bit light on sharing the facts that would have to happen in order for any of this to be put into place. It's yet another feminist scare tactic and fantasy, one that's being concocted by women to create division between the sexes and to encourage women to end their marriages, destroy their families, which in reality is and has been feminism's goal for decades. It's exactly why she, as she said in the video, ladies, do it now. Remember, one of feminism's main goals, which by the way they took straight out of the Marxist playbook, is the destruction of the family unit, which is why they make things up like this and try to get women to file for divorce. And it's why they go around making videos such as this.